This episode is brought to you by Rescue Intelitech, innovating solutions to keep firefighters safe. Their Solo Rescue Decon Washer helps reduce cancer risks by cleaning contaminated gear quickly and effectively. Learn more at rescueintelitech.com because clean gear saves lives.
Need reliable firefighting gear? From helmets to boots, find it all at thefirestore.com, trusted by first responders everywhere. Shop seasonal savings on the gear that keeps you ready.
Hi, Chris McClure here with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Welcome to this episode of Talking Trucks. Again, my guest today is Ricky Riley, and we're going to be talking about heavy rescue trucks today. There are a number of different things that go into this. You could go with the PGFD style, which is also like the DC style or the style that we see at the FDNY. Or there are a number of other different things. We're focusing on the heavy rescues today. And we're deviating a bit from our last podcast where we talked about this trend that we both have seen about rigs being built with more practicality in mind, more mission oriented. It's not that rescue trucks are not, but we do find I feel, at least this is my opinion, I feel that there's a lot of customization that goes into them, particularly compartmentation and things of that nature. Ricky, we saw one of your rescue rigs down there. It was still being outfitted. You had a specific person who was designing those compartments to fit all the equipment. There are a number of different organizations out there that, during the delivery cycle, you can send the truck to. Sometimes it's the dealer who does that. But we really do kind of get into some real customized compartmentation. At the same time, you don't want to over customize those compartments because then if you switch tools along the line, if it's in service for 15 or 20 years, then suddenly things don't fit in the slot that you originally created for the old thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, about compartmentation and some of the more mechanical kinds of things. But I guess to get us started, Ricky, when we're talking about heavy rescue design, what are some of the major decisions that need to be made right up front before you even start thinking about compartmentation or which style you want to go with?
All right, so obviously across the country, there's different terminology. So what Chris and I are talking about is a truck that carries car crash rescue tools, stabilization, airbags, maybe ropes and stuff like all that kind of sort of stuff. So rescue and then squads, and then there's rescue squads. And, I call them rescues, and then I go to Florida and then the rescue's an ambulance. So it's kind of like the tanker tender thing, there's another one of those battles. So we're just talking about, these rigs that carry a lot of specialized equipment that doesn't fit in the box of an engine. It doesn't fit in the box of a truck, and this is the rig that carries all that pieces of equipment. So, when we talk about those particular rigs, they're very specialized, and I think they take the most amount of time to get from start to completion. Because we have a starting point for all of us is what we're going to carry, and that is how many rescue tools are we going to carry, and what are the sizes of those tools, and do they have any kind of width restriction? When I mean width restriction is that, can I take the tool and put it in the 96 or 96 or 100 inch body, crossways, as opposed to, in line with the frame rails? Or is it something that I got to put in line with frame rails as opposed to putting it crossbody? And then how am I going to store all that? And then another big thing is how much does it weigh? And I'm not worried about weight for the apparatus axles, which is always, we're going to talk about, I'm sure, but I'm talking about weight of getting it out of the piece of apparatus. So, it's really easy for me to mount it in the compartment, but getting it out of the compartment is always going to be an issue. That's based on, do we have pan doors? Do we have roll-up doors? How far can we lean into the compartment to get that piece of equipment out? And then once we get it out of its bracket or storage, area, are we going to be able to lift it out, or does it take two people? Do we have a way to facilitate, once it gets out of its storage facility to slide it across the bracket or, any kind of thing like that. And then, these things are getting not as many lightweight tools as we have. Things are definitely going back to the heavier side of things. With all these, and we're going to talk about battery powered tools, but a battery powered tool weighs a lot more than a hydraulically powered tool. You just got that umbilical cord as opposed to you have with the battery one. So once again, is it how high are we putting those tools? Where we have to put the shelves, or is it nice and low? So, you're not, straining your back to get that piece of equipment out. And then how we, like the big thing now I see with apparatus, especially when we're talking about these heavy rescues, is that everybody wants to do these lazy Susans. The where you put all the tools and you mount them on their ends, and then the bracket turns so you can get to the cutters. I can get to a spreader. I can get to a combi tool. And now I'm taking up a lot of compartment space, in the piece of fire apparatus. So once again, what am I willing to sacrifice to get this lazy Susan? Just as one example of a bracket or a tool dispenser or a tool shelf that's in there. So once again, making sure that we understand all the equipment that's going to go on there. And then obviously if I'm buying a big tandem axle rescue and it's X amount of feet long, and are we going to stuff it to the gills with equipment and then go, yeah, next year there's a new tool coming out. Can we actually fit it on here? Or do we have to sacrifice something to get it off there? So once again, building your apparatus to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, as we get farther and farther down the life of the apparatus. So we talked about it with the pumpers and the aerials, that mission definement is that we have to define what we're going to do and how we're going to carry it. And that certainly goes into some other questions that you have for the show.
Well, I think your comments about the equipment really do sort of determine how we're going to configure the truck. And by this, I mean, are we going to have, is it going to be a box on the back, like the body with a crew cab? Is it going to be no crew cab? We're only going to have a driver and an officer, and then the rest of the truck is the body, and it's more of a walk-in with kind of like that alleyway. When I came in, the truck that we had, we had the crew cab, but you could go from the crew cab into the back box and then out the back doors. So we had to walk through. But I think in some ways that complement of equipment that you were going to carry is probably going to help determine whether you do the PGFD style or a walk-in with just the cab and you can walk into the back area or walk through. But I'm curious to hear from you, how should a department determine what choice to make there? I mean, I know it always goes back to the "it depends" kind of thing, which I get, but there are definite, I think, cues that a department can key in on to know, or to at least guide it to which type of truck, walk in, walk through, or the PGFD style walk in they want to do. So how would you, if you were consulting with a company, a fire department, how would you suggest determining which style to go with?
It depends, Chris. It once again is based on equipment. So, obviously, coming from the Northeast, and dealing with that type of rescue truck, a walk-in rescue truck with usually just a driver and the officer up front, and knowing that works. I mean, it worked for decades before I go to Florida, and I get to Florida and we design a rescue truck, and our mission defined that we could not do it with that type of rescue truck, because that's what I wanted. I want tandem axles. I want, just the cab. I want, the guy, the crews to ride in the back. But our mission defined that, hey, we need to carry all this extrication equipment. We have to carry all the struts and stuff like that are long pieces. And then we have to carry, then we were trying to define ourselves that how can we carry, because they were the collapse team also, how can we carry enough stuff to shore up a building or shore up a house when a car runs into it? So it was Florida. For some reason, it seems like people like to run their cars into their houses for whatever reason, more than I've ever seen anywhere else. But, hey, we don't want to have to go back and get a specialized truck every time this happens. Can we put enough sheets of plywood, 2x6s, 2x4s, 2x12s, whatever we need on the truck itself, so we're able to sustain that mission based on our staffing level. So, all those kind of pieces got to come into play when we're designing that rig. Now, that rig that we designed in Florida, I mean, it's a gorgeous rig. I mean, the crews and people that put it together did a fabulous job. But, it's a single axle. Something that, depending on your call volume and your streets and how many times you're going to start and stop and how bad is that may not be good for you. I mean, I think most of us in DC, the FDNY, a lot of those people use those tandem axles. It's not because of weight. It's because we want more brakes. We want 2, 4, 6. We want 8 tires trying to stop us rather than just 4. We got 2 sets of brakes. And then obviously, and it helps us with our weight also. But I think it's more about braking than anything else. So once again, depending on if you got hills and stuff like that. I mean, obviously Florida's flat, so we're not going to have to deal with that. So, we were able to build a rescue truck that had huge compartments, huge 60-inch, through compartments, because, we get every compartment's through, as opposed to when you have a walk-in, you can't have a through compartment. So, now we're able to carry all that long equipment across the frame of the truck, and, and it works. So, that mission definement, what you're able to do and what you're able to do with staffing levels. Look, we didn't need to carry people in the back because the heavy duty rescue squad only was manned by 2 people, so, and they were supplemented with trucks and engines to help them do their mission. Whereas, we're in DC and in the FDNY and in Boston and in Chicago, there's 4 or 5 firefighters riding on the rig, so they're riding in the back and the 2 are up front. So once again, all these factors kind of come into play. So it goes back to, it depends, Chris.
Well, I did want to touch a little bit more on the tandem or single axle decision. You mentioned the weight, you mentioned the braking, but could you go a little bit into what some of the trade-offs are depending on which one you decide to go with, which will be functional for your area, but for example, tandem axle probably gonna be longer. Than a single axle, it's going to be shorter. You might, if you have station constraints, but then you might not be able to carry as much. So just talk a little bit about the decisions that go into the tandem versus single axle. Sometimes it's just because, hey, this is what we've done. We know it can work. But obviously the ones you've got down there, the heavy duty ones that the one of which I saw, those are tandem axles. It's got the walk in through the back. But I don't know. I guess what led you to that style or to that choice? And what are some of the things that departments should be considering when they are making a similar choice?
I mean, my apparatus mentor always told me you can't carry enough equipment. You can't carry enough equipment, which equates to weight, to support a decision of a tandem axle rescue. And I'm like, I don't know about that one. But I mean, the FDNY, they carry a lot of equipment, and once again, that associates a lot of weight with it. But we would have people buy tandem axle rescues, not carry a bunch of equipment, and then we would get the bounce. Is that the suspension for the tandem axle is, for a lot of weight, and if we don't put enough weight on the apparatus, specifically over the rear axles, then, we're going to get that bounce because of the ride and because of the suspension. So, once again, defining your mission, defining, how much equipment you're going to carry. Am I at the close of a breaking point of a single axle to a tandem? And then if I'm at a breaking point where I'm getting close to the maxing out based on my equipment weights, which, we have to supply by NFPA 1900, then I'm going to add the second axle. So one, I can help distribute weight. I can increase my braking. Like you said, I'm going to increase my overall length. I'm going to increase my wheelbase. And does all that fit your department? I obviously New York's never had a problem. Look, when I first was going to New York in the 80s, single axle Model R Max, and they never had any problem. Now they're these huge monstrosities, which they need for their equipment cache they carry. Same streets. It's not like they built extra streets in New York, in that time frame, and they didn't expand out. So it works for them. It's got to work for you. But I mean, these people that I talked to, this Ron Pennington in West Virginia, that would not work for him. They need a good angle of departure, a good angle of approach, with a shorter wheelbase, and it sits up a little higher. So that's once again using their geographic area, their response area, to design their truck, and then how tight their downtowns and areas are is going to dictate all that. So yeah, we like brakes, so that's why we do it. We could have a good equipment cache. I mean, by no shape or form are we New York City or Boston or any of those, the heavy rescues from, the LA City, but, we're carrying enough equipment that we're not going to have the bounce because we're not carrying enough equipment to max, to understand that axle rating and what it's maxed out to carry. So once again, those are all kind of decisions that kind of go in, and the end is that, they're cool. I don't know what to say. National Rescue is cool, and their walk-ins are cool, but I mean, they have a mission. I mean, it's, even we like the ones you were talking about that you could get in the cab and walk in the back, is that, a lot of equipment that we carry in those side compartments, we don't want getting dirt, dust, grime on, because, we can't make a compartment that doesn't breathe. And, if the compartment is completely sealed shut with no vent holes or vents on the back of the compartment, as we go to close the compartment door, the air is not going to let us do it. So it's got to have a vent. So that's, as we drive up and down the road, grime gets inside the compartment. So, to put the shelves and the bracketry in the back of the walk-in or the back of the rig that you were talking about helps us get that stuff that we don't get grimed up or have any dirt get associated with it, gets it into a nice clean air, whether it be rope, webbing, metering, any of that sort of stuff. That gives us a nice clean area to put all that stuff, that when we close it all up, that dirt and grime from the road is not seeping in from the compartments or the doors. So,
but sometimes doesn't the manufacturer may actually be the one who tells you, like, if you're going to want to carry this amount of stuff, you're going to have to switch to the tandem, or can, so sometimes is that decision made for the department?
So yeah, we can do a weight analysis for sure. So you definitely should be doing a weight analysis, regardless if you're buying a rescue truck, a pumper, or a mini pumper, an air. You should be doing a weight analysis. And my buddy Tom Shane will always get on me about that, about weight analysis. But is your committee, is your department thinking far enough ahead to go, this is all the equipment I'm going to carry, and I'm going to buy it, I'm going to weigh it, or you're going to take the manufacturer's website weights and understand that, and then go, all right, 4 years have gone by, 3 years have gone by since I've ordered it. Did I upgrade? Did something change? So how am I going to add this weight on there now? And now I have to tell the apparatus manufacturer, hey, we switched hydraulic tools, or we changed something, and we're going to add this more weight to it. Usually after about the third year, you're probably stuck with the rig that you're going to buy, or you're going to go all the way back in queue. So once again, building extra weight carrying ability into your rescue truck is probably a good idea. Now look, you can achieve that with a single axle, depending on your organization, or if I'm right at the breaking point of the single axle rating, then I might add the second axle. It's going to cost me money. It's going to cost me wheelbase. It's going to cost me overall length. But is it good for the tenure of the truck as we kind of go on? Because I think nobody saw the move. I mean, it was certainly on the horizon of going, okay, everything battery, and now we're carrying that extra weight with us as we go up and down the road. And look, it's not an astronomical weight. Don't think that these batteries weigh tons or anything like that, but it adds up as we start to make that truck bigger and better. So
sticking with some with the cordless tool theme, not only the extrication equipment, I mean, we have battery powered positive pressure fans now. There's a tremendous amount of cordless, circular saws, sawzalls, impact drills, regular drills, or impact wrenches. I'm sorry, impact wrenches, regular cordless drills. There are so many cordless tools these days. Now, I come from, we had 2 generators on the truck that we had originally, the one that I came in. We had a Lima, we had a Harrison. And I think the second one we had, we had I think it was a Lima again. And then we had an amps generator, stowed up top. We were concerned about redundancy at that time, but the fact is we had things that required the generators. The current truck that we have, we still have some cord reels on it, but the generator certainly doesn't have to be as large. But now with the advent of all these cordless tools, and I guess if you have light towers and such, that kind of forces your hand a little bit, but is it even worth putting a generator on a rescue truck these days? I mean, even the portable lights are all battery powered now. You don't need cord reels dragged into a house anymore. Is it really just purely a departmental decision? I mean, we've talked about practicality in the last podcast. We're talking about it a little bit here. Generator's going to cost you some extra scratch, what's your call on generators?
So I'm not young and I'm not old. So I'm kind of like stuck in the middle. So I'm willing to go, yes, battery powered tools are here to stay. I would say that the first generation of those, like even when we got the original rescue engine at Kentland, is that those batteries were junk. The memory on them, the amount of times you had to replace them, they were undependable. How we were going to charge them on the apparatus was not thought of at that time. It was an afterthought. So I think now, with the committees that are thinking more forward, I think as consultants, we're thinking ahead of where the truck's going to be 5 to 10, 15 years from now. So we're making sure that the apparatus is spec'd with the correct amount of power from the alternator, how many 12-volt pieces of chargers we can put in there. We put a 12-volt charging block in every compartment, whether it be run off the shoreline or the battery, run off the fire truck when it started, all kind of things you can kind of go into. But so I like to have a little bit of both. I think that to go all battery is a bad play. I just don't. We don't get a do-over. We don't get to go, oh, let me go back to the firehouse and get extra batteries. And look, you may carry extra batteries on your fire truck, but when were they charged? When were they changed? Are they fully charged? Has it, is the battery still good? So I think that we need to have the ability to go, yep, we can support a battery powered hydraulic rescue tool. We can support battery powered fans. We can support battery powered lights. But if we have a failure, or if we're on an incident scene longer than the battery life expectancy, do we have enough batteries to support it on the truck? Or why don't we just have the generator and have the light, the core reel, the box? I even go back to even like the fans that are out there now. That hey, they have a defined amount of time that they run, but they all have a plug that I can plug into the fire truck with the generator. Now, look, I don't need a 30 kW generator anymore. I don't need a 25 kW generator unless your hydraulic tool system mandates that, if you're still using hydraulic tools, powered by hydraulic motors. And we are. We have a generator, a hydraulic tool system. We have portable gas-powered hydraulic tool pumps, and we have the battery tools. So, I mean, if we have all these kind of things that, this rescue truck, is supposed to be there to be the be-all to end-all. And if we have a point of failure, and if it's a battery-powered tool, that we should have something on the truck that is able to replace it in case we have this failure, whether it be a light, whether it be a rescue tool, any of those kinds of things that are on the rigs, that we have the ability to run it and operate to go to plan B and to plan C. If you talk to any of these rescue guys, they're there to rescue the rest of the fire department. Well, they can if they only have one tool in their toolbox, and that being a battery powered tool. And if you don't have a generator or a separate pump or power unit to generate the next thing that you need, then I think you're kind of failing. And look, at some people may think that's archaic thinking, but I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket.
Right.
That's why we call it a rescue truck. That's why it's so big. That's why it's so specialized, that we're able to be able to have that plan A, B, and C built into the truck. And when it shows up, we're going to be able to do anything that we need to do and have a failure on a piece of equipment or a tool or a process and go, we can go to plan B, we can go to plan C, and it's all here on this truck. I don't have to call for it. I don't have to hit a second alarm for rescue stuff or anything like that. So, I mean, I get on that. I mean, I've consulted with a department that's not doing a generator at all, and that's why I'm a consultant. I say I don't think it's right, but I don't live there. I don't.
Right.
I think this is what you should do. And if they said no, this is we know by our call volume, we know by our looking at our stats that we're never on the scene for more than 45 minutes unless it's a conflict. We're burning the house completely. We have the data to support that. If you've got that, that's great. Most fire departments don't have that kind of data to be able to go back and go, but every extrication that we ran last year, we were there for exactly 20, for an average of 27 minutes, for instance. Mm-hmm. And the battery tools have a 30-minute runtime or something. Okay. I don't know if that's what they run or
right.
not. Just don't give a damn. But if you have that data, then that can help you support that decision making. But I still think you need a generator of some sort to run some of that stuff in there in case we have a failure.
Gotcha.
Soapbox done.
Well, I might be getting you on another one, so who knows? How modular should we be thinking about making the compartmentation? I touched on it in the beginning where, you can do some really, really slick stuff. You bring all the equipment to the manufacturer, the fabricator, they create all these nice little nooks and crannies for every, piece of equipment. I'm not talking about going like European where you see some of those trucks and every conceivable square inch is consumed by what they carry on those trucks over there sometimes. But you can get so customized with the compartmentation that should you add a tool or should you change out a tool, now suddenly you've got this really great thing that doesn't fit the tool anymore, or you end up having to stick it somewhere else that maybe it's not even secured properly. I think it's important to make sure everything fits properly. But should you just leave extra space on the truck, or should you make the compartments more modular?
I don't know if modular is the term I would use. I make it so I'd only have to drill in the fire truck once. Mm-hmm. So we in the previous podcast we talked about Dick Young, and Dick Young has a company, and we're not. And there's many different ways to do this, so it's just not Dick Young's way. So, for instance, we use a lot of pack track that we mount to the walls, we mount to the floor. You can do that with pegboard that's manufactured by each individual manufacturer, and that stuff gets mounted to the walls. It can get mounted to the floor. For goodness sake, it can get mounted to the ceiling, and that gives you like a mounting surface for all these tools and equipment. So we can buy commercial bracketry, which, there's plenty of companies that make that kind of stuff to hold your rescue tools, to hold struts, to hold Halligan bars, to hold lights. And then you can bolt that stuff to this pack track, these pegboards, these modular systems. And then, you can take that off and put new stuff on. But the bracketry is still there, so you're not drilling into your fire truck all the time. The last thing I want to do is take a $2 million rescue truck and then just start drilling holes in it. It crushes my heart to see that. Whereas if I use this pegboard or pack track or whatever the other manufacturers' names are, and I apologize that I don't know them, so the other manufacturers just bear with me. Is that I mount that to my walls, my ceiling, my floor, and then I can mount and move things around if I don't like it. So yeah, I'll buy a customized holder for my hydraulic rescue tool hose. So it looks like a box and the top's cut off, but I can take that box, unbolt it from this floor that's put there, and then move it to the left, move it to the right, move it up on this wall, move it here, move it kind of all around. So as I get new equipment or I change the design or I change rescue tools, which we just did, we went from one type rescue tool to another on a rescue truck that is only a couple years old, is that, we had built into the ceiling the bracketry to hold reels, so it was easy for us to get to. And we had the back wall so we could mount the motors to it, but, we can slide the motor right or left, with this bracketry that we put on the back wall. So once again, not Ricky, my team, thinking ahead and going, hey, look, what happens if we want to move the motor to the right or to the left once we get back to the firehouse? How will we do that without drilling more holes in the wall? Well, if we put it on this slide, this bracket, we can move it to the right, move it to the left, and we can move the reels right and left, once again, how the firefighters want them. So I think having that kind of stuff mounted on the floor, having that stuff mounted on the walls, one, it saves your fire truck from 1,000 holes, and two, allows us to go, hey, let's move this kind of around. So each individual bracket, like you were talking about, or holder or box, I can just unbolt it. Maybe I put some screw holes or put some expansion joints into that track that's on the ground, but now I can move it to the right, move it to the left, and make my rig better. I think the people that do that as their profession, these equipment mounters, which I love all. There's so many of them, and they're all on social media too. So you get to see all the neat stuff that they build. Is they put a lot of thought into this bracketry and these holders that they're going to do, so they can it fits your rig. And a lot of it, once again, is that like when we switch these rescue tools, we're just unbolting stuff, moving it around. It bolts back on here, bolts back on to the right, and we're able to reuse brackets. But we were in our compartment, for instance, we've already thought of that. We don't have a 500-pound tray. We got a 1,000-pound tray. That came to the manufacturers that, hey, look, we know that this is going to be our hydraulic rescue tool compartment probably for the life of the truck. Is that, yep, the hydraulic rescue tool with a cord or with a hose weighs this much, but a battery one weighs that much. So if we go to a battery one, we need the shelf to be able to carry that weight. So once again, thinking ahead of, the team thinking ahead of what's going to coming down the road 2 to 3 years from now, and setting the truck up for that kind of success when we have to change that stuff.
Well, we talked about a number of items today regarding rescue truck design. Certainly not every item that goes into to building a truck. Certainly, if anyone has a question or wants us to touch on something else, we can definitely do that. Let me know at chris.mcclune@clarionevents.com. But do you have any final thoughts just before I let you go today about what we talked about?
Man, you got to put your time, you got to put the work in on a rescue truck. You really, really do. You got to think about how you want to carry the equipment, how you're going to power it, and then think of the future expansion of the rig. So one of the things that I think is a simple thing to do, and I'm not sure that everybody thinks that, is we put a outlet in every compartment that is 110, that is powered by the Shoreline, and then also has the USB-C power units in it for what's coming in the future. And of course, there's probably going to be a USB-W in the next week. But you can change those faceplates out and change that out. But so we put one of those in every compartment, to go, where are we going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Because the last thing you want to do is start drilling and running wire through a rescue truck. And it's just a nightmare. So, add extra shelves. We have shelves that we did not use on our last rescue truck that you saw, Chris. They're in our storage Connex box to go, hey, we already have the custom built shelf ready to go in there. We don't have to refabricate it, but 5 years from now, 2 or 3 years from now, whatever it is, that if we need to rearrange this compartment, we got a roll out, tilt down shelf inside the Connex box we can put in here if we got to change something around. So, having those already built for that particular truck, not trying to measure it out, by the other man, measuring it out and going, oh, we were off by a tenth, or where are we going to get this rolling assembly? So build extra stuff into the rig, keep it for the life of the rig, think about how you're going to power it. And then think about the future, because I've never seen people go, well, let's take something off the rescue truck. It's always like, let's put some more on the rescue truck. So, and make sure you got good brakes on it. So,
and a bell. I said that last one. Always, Chris McClune will always put on the bell. Well,
it depends, Chris. It depends.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining me today. Hey, we've shortened these up a little bit the past few that we've done. So let us know if you like the format, if you don't like the format, even if you're ambivalent to the format, let us know, because we're always trying to improve the end product here. You can let me know at chris.mcclune@clarionevents.com. If you are looking to view previous podcasts, they are all archived at www.fireapparatus.com/podcasts. And we've gotten a little better with our organization of them. You can find them all arranged by show now, as well as, just an overall, every show since the beginning of time kind of archive as well. So again, that's at fireapparatus.com/podcast. So again, this has been Chris McClune with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment on Talking Trucks with Ricky Riley. Have a good one, everyone, and stay safe. Thanks again, Ricky.
Thanks, Chris.
This episode is brought to you by Rescue Intelitech, innovating solutions to keep firefighters safe. Their Solo Rescue Decon Washer helps reduce cancer risks by cleaning contaminated gear quickly and effectively. Learn more at rescueintelitech.com, because clean gear saves lives.
Need reliable firefighting gear? From helmets to boots, find it all at thefirestore.com. Trusted by first responders everywhere. Shop seasonal savings on the gear that keeps you ready.